The movie opens in 1906, in the state of Oklahoma. A man by the name of Brannigan is attempting to escape three individuals who are wearing sheriff badges: Dugan, Stillwell, and Ketchum, who is the commander of the group. No matter how rapidly Brannigan runs, he is certain to be shot and taken into custody. Ketchum gives him a few kicks while asking for the location of another man they had been pursuing, but Brannigan refuses to reveal the information. Ketchum continues to kick him. Because of this, Ketchum decides to bind Brannigan to a horse and pull him across the countryside until he reveals the truth, which is that the man they are searching for is headed in the opposite direction. Ketchum decides to take Brannigan's life rather than let him go free. In the meantime, Wyatt, an adolescent, and his elderly father, Henry McCarty, are working diligently on their farm. Henry spent his childhood in New York and did a lot of traveling before settling down as a farmer in Oklahoma. Unfortunately, he lost his wife to illness. Nevertheless, her brother Al travels quite a bit to Wyatt's home in order to provide a helping hand and be Wyatt's uncle. Their lives are peaceful and full of joy. The main cause of contention in their relationship is Wyatt's desire to travel and learn how to shoot a pistol, both of which Henry bans. They are still in the wee hours of the morning when they see a horse going by that has a saddle covered in blood but no rider on it. While Wyatt is leading the fearful animal to the farm, Henry mounts his own horse and begins to examine the area. After a while, he comes across a man who is unconscious lying on the ground. Curry, his name, has been shot in the shoulder, so Henry covers the wound with mud and a cloth. Then he discovers a revolver and a backpack full of money, indicating that there is violence going on that he does not want to be a part of. However, he only walks a few feet away before he feels awful for the man, so he returns, picks up everything, and after getting rid of any evidence of their presence, he takes Curry back to the farm with him. They put Curry on a bed and tend to his wound with the help of Wyatt. When night falls, Henry takes the revolver and the satchel containing the money and hides them in a secret compartment in his closet, completely unconscious that Wyatt is spying on him through the space beneath the door. The next morning, Henry decides that if the bullet is not removed, the wound will not heal, so he goes to town to get a doctor. However, before leaving, he ties Curry to the bed and places the dagger he used to cut the rope on the nightstand. Wyatt goes to Henry's closet after his father has left to investigate the hidden compartment. He gets the gun and goes outside to practice shooting at a bottle after noticing the money in the bag, albeit it takes him a few tries to hit his target. Back at home, Curry is hearing shots in his sleep and having nightmares of the night his house was burned down and his family was murdered, while the perpetrator urged him to keep his head down. Soon later, Wyatt returns to put the pistol back in the closet, seizing the opportunity to open a box Henry had concealed there a long time ago. Inside, he discovers another gun and a slew of newspaper clippings about other crimes. On the trip to town, Henry discovers that Ketchum and his men have been following the path Curry left behind. Stillwell is such an expert tracker that he can tell when someone has covered Curry's tracks, so the three now know their suspect is working with someone else. These men hear some noises in the tall grass and shoot, but Henry has already fled before they can reach him. Back at the farm, Wyatt finds that one of the ropes on Curry's hands is a little loose, and his other hand is wrapped in a blanket. When Wyatt removes the blanket, he notices that the rope has vanished, so Curry seizes the opportunity to stop pretending to be asleep and frees himself. Grabbing the knife from the nightstand, he leaps on Wyatt, swearing he doesn't want to injure him and only wants his bag back. When Henry returns, he kicks Curry off his son before hitting him until he loses consciousness again. They then tie Curry to a chair and awaken him. After deciding that going to town for a doctor would be too perilous, Henry attempts to remove the bullet from Curry's wound while asking some questions. Curry, wriggling and sobbing in pain, claims to be a lawman and advises Henry and Wyatt to escape before it's too late. The bullet is retrieved, but Ketchum and his men emerge outside the home before Henry can ask any questions. When Henry goes to get Curry's gun, he notices that it has been shot, so he reloads it before heading outside. Ketchum identifies himself as a sheriff and his partners as his deputies, then adds they're looking for Curry, a dangerous criminal and a murderer who also pretends to be a sheriff. Curious about Henry, Ketchum begins questioning him about his personal life, taking a special interest when he learns his name is McCarty because there was a criminal with a similar last name many years ago. Henry tells them he doesn't have any family, so it can't be a relative, and he hasn't seen someone who fits Curry's description, so he dismisses the men. Ketchum urges them to secure their doors tonight before departing. Then Henry returns to the house and slaps Wyatt for using the gun. Wyatt merely wanted to know how it felt because he was the only boy in the region who had never been trained to fire a firearm and had to learn on his own. Wyatt criticizes Henry and labels him useless, suggesting Henry will be left alone to die since he will leave the farm as soon as he is able. Henry proceeds to interrogate his prisoner again, not wanting to think about how much it hurt. Curry says that he is the true sheriff, and the trio are bank robbers who stole the badges from Curry's deputies after they were killed. He recovered the money but was injured in the process, so he blacked out and fell from his horse while fleeing, only to wake up on the property later. Curry isn't sure why Ketchum didn't shoot Henry, but he's confident they'll return. Meanwhile, Ketchum and his men debate their options. They don't trust Henry and are perplexed as to why he is assisting a stranger. Possibly he was promised a portion of the money. Dugan is perplexed as to why they didn't shoot him despite the fact that they were 3-1, so Ketchum explains that something strange is going on. He doesn't believe Henry is in it for the money, and he wasn't exactly holding the pistol like a farmer. What they need to do first is acquire information, so Dugan will stay on the property while Ketchum and Stillwell go hire some firearms and pay Al a visit. Because it's too unsafe to stay out this late, Henry has Wyatt go inside before he finishes his agricultural tasks. Later, Henry gives Curry some soup himself, causing Curry to protest about his continued confinement. Henry quizzes Curry about his background to see if he can trust him. Curry tells him about all the individuals he's worked and lived with, all of whom names Henry recognizes from his travels. He also apologizes for jumping on Wyatt, claiming he was afraid and disoriented when he awoke in an unfamiliar area. Henry's face looks familiar, but he denies ever meeting Curry before as he decides to release one of his hands. Then Henry puts his gun on the table and goes to refill his glass, hoping Curry will grab it, but he doesn't. Curry, on the other hand, continues to tell Henry memories from his childhood, like the time he witnessed Billy the Kid being shot. Curry had heard Billy's voice in his dream earlier. Hearing the stories and witnessing Curry not reach for the pistol is ultimately enough to make Henry believe him. He releases Curry's other hand, returns his gun, and advises him to leave his house before the thugs return. They don't get to discuss it further, however, when Dugan starts shooting at them through the window. Curry fires back, and Wyatt rushes over to investigate what's going on, taking a bullet to the arm in the process. Curry goes out from pain, so Henry gets his revolver as Dugan crawls underneath the house, shooting through the floor every time Henry moves. Henry decides on a strategy and hands the gun to his son along with some shooting tips before tossing a book on the floor to deceive Dugan into shooting in that direction while he rushes the other way. Henry rushes outside with his rifle and continues shooting under the house till Dugan runs out and is shot in the leg. Henry leaps on him and attempts to force him to reveal some information, but Dugan refuses to cooperate, so Henry murders him. After finding a gang mark on Dugan's skin, he feeds the body to the pigs to make it disappear. Following that, Henry tends to Wyatt's wound while deflecting his son's questions about his history. Wyatt believes his father does not respect him, and Henry cannot expect to be treated with respect in return. After checking on Curry, who is still dreaming about the fire, Henry steps outside with his rifle and braces himself for the worst. Al goes bird hunting in the morning, making it easy for Ketchum and Stillwell to discover him. They want to know more about Henry, but Al refuses to answer their inquiries and is knocked down as soon as he tries to defend himself. Back at the farm, Henry and Wyatt assist Curry in getting ready to go. Curry, on the other hand, can barely walk, let alone ride a horse, so he instructs them to leave while he stays behind to finish things. Wyatt wants to stay and defend his house as well, but Henry agrees with Curry and prepares his son to go. Unfortunately, when they get outside, they are met with a horrible surprise. Ketchum and Stillwell have returned with a slew of hired guns. Ketchum makes the father and son a deal: if they give him Curry, he'll let them depart without a scratch. Ketchum goes a step further and reveals they've captured Al, who is injured and bleeding, because Henry refuses to accept. Henry grabs his weapon and hands it to Wyatt, urging him to stay inside, away from the window, and only shoot if absolutely necessary. Ignoring Curry's requests for his release, Henry goes to see Ketchum, who reveals he isn't a sheriff and is dying to find out who Henry is. Ketchum offers to swap Al for Curry, but Henry declines, and because neither he nor Al would divulge any secrets, Ketchum kills Al right there and then. This causes Wyatt to emerge and begin firing, so Henry takes him back inside as the gang retaliates, hitting Curry on the leg as he approaches the window. Henry tells Wyatt to keep his head down after chastising him for acting without thinking. Hearing these statements that match his dream, Curry finally connects the dots and knows Henry's true identity is Billy the Kid. He didn't die the night of the fire, he simply escaped. Henry ignores him, focusing instead on getting his old gun and holster before heading outside to begin firing after only a few words. Henry shoots a few gang members before returning to the house through the window, leaving a gap large enough for Curry to shoot a few men as well. As the remaining men approach the home, Henry grabs a knife and exits through the back door. He sneaks around, stabs 2 crooks, and then hides under the house to shoot a third. Then he meets Stillwell, who tries to use his knife as well, but Henry murders him before he can even take a step. Only Ketchum remains. He's hiding behind the pig pen and manages to injure Henry on the shoulder. prompting Henry to flee into the woods, forcing Ketchum to follow him. While the two men take cover behind woods and trade bullets, Henry proves to be the superior marksman and wounds Ketchum in the leg and the shoulder. Ketchum is able to land one final shot before Henry kills him off for good. Henry draws closer as Ketchum fights for his life. Henry's wounds aren't too serious, so as soon as he gets back to the farm, he goes to see Curry about getting some medical attention for himself. Henry uncovers a shocking revelation about Curry's arm when he takes off Curry's sleeve to have a better look at it. Henry realizes that Curry has the same gang mark as Dugan, and Dugan shoots Henry for spotting it. Curry did not legally lie, he acknowledges to have served as sheriff in the past, albeit in a dishonest capacity. Curry and his deputies had previously collaborated with Ketchum on a task, but when they discovered that Ketchum was planning to kill them while they were working together on their most recent assignment, Curry attempted to run, which is what started the whole thing off. Curry is determined to prove that he was the one who killed Billy the Kid despite the fact that Henry is suffering and is not yet dead. However, Wyatt comes just in time to murder him before he can fire his weapon. Henry believes that it is too late to bring his father to a doctor, so before he passes away, he wants to share some parting words with his son before he passes away. Henry wants Wyatt to know that only half of the stories he will hear about Billy the Kid when he leaves the house are accurate. Wyatt will hear many stories about Billy the Kid. He freely admits that he is not a morally upstanding individual, and he is not a believer in the concept of redemption. During all of this time, he has only sought to find solace in being a good parent to his child. Henry is under the impression that he does not have a place in this new world, whilst Wyatt is positive that he does. After going through his grief over his father's passing, Wyatt chooses to bury his father in the same cemetery as his mother. When he feels emotionally prepared, he gathers his possessions, saddles up his horse, and rides away from the farm, just as he's dreamed of doing for as long as he can remember.